Nicola Sturgeon has been accused of reneging on a promise to eliminate student debt in Scotland. Speaking at First Minister's Questions, Scottish Labour leader Kezia Dugdale said the SNP had created a student debt mountain that stands at £2.7 billion. But Ms Sturgeon said average student debt in Scotland was considerably lower than anywhere else in the UK. And she said Scotland had the best support package of any of the four nations of the UK. The First Minister also said the Scottish Government was taking steps to increase the bursary element of the support package at a time that the UK Government was planning to abolish bursaries altogether and move entirely to loans. Debt monster. However, Ms Dugdale claimed the level of student debt in Scotland made Ms Sturgeon too ashamed to say it out loud, and said students from the most deprived backgrounds were far more likely to go to university in England than in Scotland. She said the current £2.7 billion value of the student debt was higher than the combined cost of the new Forth Crossing and the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow, and was now the Scottish Government's single biggest financial asset. And she said the latest figures from the Student Awards Agency for Scotland showed that the average bursary or grant has been cut by almost 30% under the SNP government, which Ms Dugdale said forced students from deprived backgrounds to take on an even greater debt burden. Ms Dugdale asked, "The student debt monster the SNP once promised to dump is now a debt mountain. Did the First Minister ever have any intention of keeping that promise?" Ms Sturgeon said that the average student debt in Scotland was £9,440, significantly lower than the figures of £21,180 for England, £19,010 for Wales and £18,160 for Northern Ireland. The First Minister added that Scottish domiciled students do not have to pay fees of up to £27,000 which are charged for tuition elsewhere in the UK, which she said was a real saving that does not become a debt in Scotland. The Scottish Government is committed to the principle of free tuition for the country's students, with Ms Sturgeon's predecessor, Alex Salmond, famously saying that the rocks would melt with the sun before he allowed tuition fees to be introduced. Stone carvings. Mr. Salmond's words were later carved onto a commemorative stone at Edinburgh's Heriot-Watt University. But Scottish Conservative leader Ruth Davidson called on the First Minister and her government to ditch the stone carvings and the vanity projects and instead focus on practical solutions to getting more students from deprived backgrounds into colleges and universities. The Conservative leader called for all graduates who have enjoyed their university education to pay back a contribution once they got a decent job. Ms Davidson said, that money could then be used to help increase bursaries for poorer students who, under the current scheme, can't even get a foot through the door. What reason, other than an ideological one, would the First Minister have for not considering it? Ms Sturgeon told her, students who graduate and benefit from a university education pay back that through taxation. That is what I believe should happen, not to have tuition fees or a graduate tax or whatever terminology Ruth Davidson wants to use. Scottish Liberal Democrat leader Willie Rennie said student debt in Scotland has not been dumped, it has been doubled. Speaking after the debate, News Scotland, which represents the country's students, said it increased grants were needed for the poorest students in particular. Its president, Bonnie Sandlin, said, "It's right that we've maintained free education in Scotland, but that can't just be about the price tag. We need to look at the wider cost of studying, and how students are supported in education." Without access to the necessary financial support, students are forced to turn to commercial debt, take on unreasonable amounts of part-time work, or even drop out of education altogether. That's simply a huge waste of some of our brightest potential, and a huge waste for our country. The exchanges came after politicians from all sides expressed their condolences to the friends and family of 16-year-old schoolboy Bailey Gwynn, who died after being stabbed at Cults Academy in Aberdeen on Wednesday.